Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, beautiful people? I hope you are doing well. Today is Tuesday, April 20. Wait, is that right? Yes, April 22nd, 2024. I hope you had a wonderful Easter resurrection weekend. I hope it was festive and fun and relaxing, full of light and love and everything that you needed it to be for a spirit of revival and regeneration in the highest frequency possible for your greatest good and for the greatest good of all. I guess for the greatest good of all that concerns you. Oh man. I had a great weekend. Thanks for asking. It started off really, really busy, and then it kind of mellowed out into more relaxing and more peaceful and restful. A whole week actually was very, very busy. I had a lot going on, so I'm still like energetically kind of recuperating, to be honest, because I was outdoors a lot, and this is not the season for allergy sufferers, which usually I am not one of, but for whatever reason, when it's at a heightened state, I guess the pollen, when it's abnormally high, I am sometimes affected by it. So for the first time ever in my life, I actually had to buy Claritin to just kind of like subdue the symptoms. So yesterday and today I'm feeling much better, thankfully, but yesterday I was really feeling it. Even though I had great ambitions to jump on, I would have been sniffling and sneezing and coughing the whole time, and my eyes were like itching like crazy. So here I am nonetheless. Thankfully, here you are as well, if you're still listening at this point. But I'm going to turn over this deck and see what we have going on today. Oh wow, oh wow. You see what's peeking underneath? The Ace of Cups and the Temperance. Wow, that's some strong energy to start. Uh-oh, I have to check that. And then we got the Knight of Swords peeking out, and then the oh, and then the High Priestess behind that. Oh my goodness, it's getting crazy in here. Oh, I thought that was the Lovers. I was about to say, pipe down, everyone. Let's just deal with the Ace of Cups and the Temperance though. Oh, somebody said, oh, the High Priestess said, no, you won't. Let me get up in it too. Hold on one second. Let me just check my so I was waiting on a package and somebody was having a problem getting here. Okay, that wasn't them. Okay, so I can continue on. Well, okay, to be fair, because if that's the case, I should take everything out. So I'll just let the High Priestess kind of hang out under here, which being hidden and kind of mysterious is her jam anyway, so she won't mind, will she? Or maybe that's the point. Maybe there's some unveiling or that's deep. Not unveiling, what's the word? Like I guess a revelation. Would that be unto the High Priestess or of the High Priestess though? Maybe a little bit of both. With this Temperance card and the Ace of Cups, there's something on the inside, or as within so without, that is transferring or transmitting perhaps. All right, give this to me, plain spirit, because I feel a deep energy on this. It's something about okay. It's something about divine love um being poured out into creation, or poured over or throughout creation. And the reason why the high priestess was like a little bit hidden, or concealed, was for her protection. It's something here about divine timing needing to align for this revelation to be made, to manifest. Okay, to manifest, as above so below, as within so without. So this could literally be the emergence of spiritual forces that have been kind of working behind the scenes up until now. So it's like the high priestess, like I said, she kind of likes to be hidden and mysterious anyway, but no less active or impactful or impressionable. Still working, still still influencing, seen or unseen, is the point that I'm trying to make. And now, what I was saying about revelation, it's about to be like a mass unveiling. That's the word I was trying to find. Unveiling of divine beings, whether they be in the masculine or feminine sense, but both are really present here if you really get into it, because the temperance kind of gives more of that masculine energy, where the high priestess is definitely more of the feminine, but the temperance is also about balance. So it really doesn't leave either either side of the game, either duality out of it. And the Ace of Cups is definitely a representation of whole love, like something that is complete, fulfilling, that is, when we say like unconditional, in this case, like non-discriminatory, I suppose, as far as the divine is concerned. So there's something here about there now being an unveiling, or that's what's underway, where those that may have been operating in the shadows of their spiritual professions are being encouraged, urged, and I would say gently influenced, because I don't see any like, I mean, we did see, what was that, the Knight of Swords, which is about some type of fast action or movement, and there could be kind of an urgence to. So it depends. That's why I put that back. So what was it? The Knight of Wands, and what was the other thing over here that I put back? Darn, I can't remember. It was something else that peeked out over here. Damn, I can't remember. But there could be like an impulse, or I should not an impulse. It could be like an impulse to project your spiritual nature in response to your surroundings, or in response to some type of catalyst, confrontation, influence, like something that kind of draws you out of your shell, so to speak. There could be in some cases, but I put that energy back because it was kind of just, just barely sliding out. So it could be that for some, but I feel more of a calming transition here, and it could even be that there are influences that mean to be disruptive or confrontational in that way, to almost kind of provoke you out of your comfort zone, or provoke you out of your, what's the right word, like out of your out of character, like almost, yeah, like draw you out of character in some way, shape, or form. And that might be the intention for the provocation, so to speak. But what it may actually do is really just unveil, like dissipate the mystery, so that you're no longer, it's kind of like once you take the veil off, there's no hiding anymore. And for some, that, as I said in the very beginning, where the high priestess kind of likes to be behind the veil, mysterious, modest, charitable, not too, she don't necessarily need to be front stage and center, to still feel effective, and to feel like there's a difference being made. But perhaps the divine is calling those energies to front stage and center, or calling them to the forefront, even if it's just in their own lives, But still, even still, with the Temperance and the Ace of Cups, I feel like there is like a drawing out, so to speak, of those that may resonate with kind of playing the background, or operating in the shadows, going unnoticed, or being kind of like the unsung hero type of energy, where you're fine making, doing your part and hopefully making a difference in your own right, but you don't even really want to be known or seen. You almost are hiding a bit, like literally, as the high priestess is here, like hiding behind what you project to be a bigger force than you. But the thing about it is, this temperance is the drawing out frequency. It's not the upstage. It's not the trump card. It's not the energy that is supposed to supersede, or how can I say it, like how I'm picking it up, how these cups are being balanced, as I said, as within, so without. There's a drawing out, because there must be some necessity or use, benefit, there it is, some benefit for energies that operate in secret or mysteriously to make themselves known, for there to be a clear unveiling, introduction, profession. I don't know why. There are many reasons that I could think of for why, but I guess maybe the overarching idea is to set an example for what others for others to be inspired by. That's what it is. Like almost to be a sign and a wonder of what's possible in your human being, as a human being working in a spiritual capacity. Kind of to take the stigma off of it with the Temperance card is definitely something about like moderating the a perception, or like tempering emotions that could be quite polarizing, particularly about spirituality, let's say, or about the less conventional expressions of spirituality, of even love itself or creation itself, whether it be through personal practice, or just, in your, like how, what is expressed through you as a human being, taking the limitations off of what's possible, and also what is acceptable, was palatable, was justified with the temperance card, like what maybe kind of breaking the stigma off of what is and isn't blasphemous, even like to consider the idea that the temperance angel, which is kind of like that heaven and earth type of frequency, is being the advocate for divine order as it is expressed in a physical form. You know, maybe even taking the mystery and the obscurity, or maybe not all of it, but taking some mystery and obscurity away from what truly is of a pure love essence, meaning it's of the divine, it's holy, it's complete, it's righteous, it's anointed even, and what is a polar opposite as the temperance is balancing those cups. Because, I mean, to put it plainly, when we're talking about the high priestess, as I've said, it's the unconventional. It's outside of the box of tradition in many ways. It could be quite personal, of an expression of spirituality, or just a way of life, a standard of living, a frequency of faith and faithfulness that is incomparable to anything that is societally structured, i.e. the Hierophant, which is something that you would expect to see, that you wouldn't necessarily be offended by, even if it's not your belief system, or if it's not your cup of tea. It's not necessarily something that would offend you. Sometimes the high priestess can be that polarizing energy where you're either in agreement with how someone chooses to carry on in life or carry themselves in life, or you're not, you know. And for some people the buck can stop there, and that's okay, but sometimes the high priestess energy can evoke this like this again, this spirit of obstinance and like that Knight of Swords energy, like enemies and what's the word that I really wanted, like aggression and confrontation, yes, assault, like all these really, like, I don't know, I'm not finding the right word to sum them all up, but it can attract enemies, maybe in this case hidden enemies, and that could be something else. As that I kind of slid that Knight of Swords back in, that maybe the draw out as well as I said, as it provokes abstinence, is also revealing in itself of what actually is the face, or what faces behind that mask of abstinence, in which could be hidden or could be mysterious in itself, or obscure, or there could be an uncertainty about it, you know. So it's like double sword, double energy here. I got some Easter egg grass under my feet from my son's basket I was making here. It's kind of like double energy here, and I guess that's what the balance is about, because that's why I said, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. It might be different for some. It might be a public profession of faith, as it is for someone in the high priestess temperance energy, kind of pronouncing who they are, what they do, or just coming out of the closet, so to speak, and being more forward about their faithfulness and whatever comes along with that provokes abstinence. Or it could be abstinence that provokes one to have to kind of come out of hiding and step into their profession, perhaps even for purposes of protection, you know, or for security's sake, you know. So either way, Whatever it is, though, it's ordained. It's sanctioned from a spiritual a spiritual source, with the Ace of Cups here and the Temperance. And as I was saying in the beginning, it's for the greatest good of all. Perhaps for the greatest good of all that you care about, but this implies from these big energies that it actually has more of an impact on the collective of creation, perhaps those that you never even intended to touch or have an intention to have a reach for, that and may never even know how what you do or what you have done or the choices that you've made have made an impact or kind of paved the way for different opportunities. But it's all the same to the divine in terms of what evolves creation forward nonetheless. And that's really, I feel like that's really powerful, because that goes with what I was saying about the high priestess energy, where it's just kind of like a do the work type of thing. And by do the work, it's more so about your personal profession of faith, like what you believe in, the standards that you set. It's not dictated by anything or anyone else outside of you. It doesn't fluctuate with the times or the trends. It's a constant, more or less. Of course, it may evolve over time depending on who you are, but for the most part, it's a constant devotion, like a divine devotion, even let's say a sacred service to oneself. Like I said, even if it's not for the intention directly to directly impact or influence anyone else, it's like, this is what I stand for, this is what's important to me, these are my standards, and that's what's secure, that is secure. Sometimes just taking a stance like that, as a matter of fact, all the time, I would venture to say, it is stabilizing, or maybe even, like stabilizing for the energetic flow in the universe. Like, it's just enough of an affirmation of faith to balance out what would be the polar opposite of that, which could be disgrace, or faithlessness, lovelessness. Just that one personal statement, one personal profession of faith unto self, unto source, or whatever it is in between or beyond that you might aspire to, can be life altering for the creative current of consciousness throughout the entire world. So it's like not to be taken for granted how your own personal creed of moral ethics and your creed of moral ethics and I'm trying to get it out, like moral ethics and standards, or moral or ethical morals and standards, however you want to say it, without judgment against anyone else. As a matter of fact, still living and letting live, is very powerful. It's extremely powerful. It also can be extremely vulnerable for all the reasons that I said, of how it can evoke a spirit of obstinance and like an enemy force. But when it's backed by this, by such a divine source and channel, of energy that is seeking to conduct this frequency through the earth by way of human beings, there's really not much, even, on its best day, that presents itself to be an enemy, or a force against, that could, it's like literally going up against God itself, and the angel armies, all of them, because this is allegedly Archangel Michael. Imagine that, a force that you can't even really see or put your finger on. Imagine somebody thinking they could actually fight it. Like, that literally is the equivalent of the Knight of Swords going up against, you know, an Archangel Michael who wields the sword of truth. Like, it's not a fair fight. It'll never be a fair fight. So, yeah. There's something deeper here, though. Ooh, with the Emperor. Wow. And this is like a kingdom of love on earth. This is literally like, I love this too with the Temperance, because it's like the Emperor is one of the most powerful cards in the deck in terms of like earthly power is concerned. Like, they don't really answer to much, you know, on a human level. And yet and still there's a deference to the divine here that I'm seeing, which I think is exactly the Temperance, like the co-creative frequency that yields eternal change, to really have like leadership that is not just devout to a source that, you know, like, because you can, when you think about it, like, oh wow, given the most recent events, you know, with the Pope and everything, this is really interesting. But it's like one thing to have the profession of a devotion and a deference, and even all the bells and whistles of it, to some invisible force, but still take liberty to kind of do what you want, you know, or to worse, to kind of manipulate that that what's the word that I want to use? Damn, I can feel it, but I don't know how to say it. Like, almost to use that, I hate to say, illusion of deference to divine, almost as a manipulative tool for control. Wow, I know that's a strong statement I just made, and, you know, peace to the dead, because I'm not saying that that's absolutely what it was or is for him, but I'm saying that for those that came before him and for that position of power as it is, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of opportunity to take advantage of those that pledge allegiance to that position of power without even a second thought about it. Like, it's something deep rooted in your consciousness to pledge your allegiance and your faithfulness to that seat, because you almost feel as if you don't, it's an abomination to the source. You know what I mean? So it's one thing, like I said, you know, no shade whatsoever really at this point, but it's one thing to operate in the guise of that grace, and there really being nobody to question you or challenge you on that, you know, without fear, you know, without guilt or shame from themselves or for themselves, or deflection of guilt and shame for the question in the first place, or just because there be no real reason, or like there will be no just cause to challenge that position, because on the outside, like, all that you can see spoken of the Pope is his benevolence. Like that's all you see is what he spoke on, what his platform was. And it was quite revolutionary for any other Pope before him, the things that he took a stance on in terms of like what was and was not restricted or cast out of the Catholic faith and the Christian, creed overall. But the operation of that power behind the veil is one that, from a spiritual perspective is questionable. And from spiritual people is questioned, that don't feel a devotion to any man in particular, but just to truth overall. So I'm saying all this to say is that not to, cast judgment on the Pope and whatever his practice truly was, known or unknown, but it goes, there's a reason that I'm saying what I'm saying, that there's a distinction being made here about someone that makes divine business their business. And they're always aspiring to the most supreme expression of power that, as I said in the very beginning, is for the greatest good of all, not just for their greatest good. Again, public or privately. This is really expressing a leader that is devoted to building and growing and maintaining, advancing the kingdom, if not of God itself, certainly of love, of peace, of harmony, of balance. And as I said, one would argue that the Pope definitely built that platform quite boldly compared to any other leader in his position. If you really consider it though, where do we, I don't know, I just wonder, like, where is the evidence of the change from that influence truly, other than just fine ideals, bold sentiments, how can it really be tracked? I guess it could be tracked, especially in terms of women. I'm trying to take my throat. Women in leadership, also another thing that he changed, of having more women in ministerial positions and things like that. So there's one thing, but I don't know, there's just something to be said about, like I said, it not being a secret, it not being a sentiment, it not being an ideal, a facade, a brand even, certainly not being a tool for control or manipulation, but it actually being a real influence, so much so that you can see and track and experience even that influence firsthand. Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to get to. There's no mystery about it. It's nothing mystical. There's nothing, even as here I have, somewhat of a thought about what may have been going on behind the veil with the emperor. This is somebody that's not really adorned in the robes that say the Hierophant is, where there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So this is the energy of there being no mysticism, like somebody that says what they mean means what they say, and there is no behind the veil in any way that would be a cause for alarm or consideration for alarm. Like, it's all love, it's all creativity, it's all peace, it's all harmony, it's all fair, it's all balance. And someone, and within the power, a high frequency of power that is conducted through someone that knows just as much as they have the power to wield that, that they take a very sincere, yes, sincerity is the key here as well, like a sincere responsibility for the power that they hold, the power that they wield, and also the source or force that they submit to. Like, there's no gray area there. Like an extreme devout faithfulness to their anointing, and the position that they have been appointed to, but also how that affects those that they feel a direct responsibility for, and also consideration of those that they may not even be aware that they impact at all. Because, like, consider the case of, like, the president or whatever, even, where what he does ultimately can affect the entire globe. And not that every decision that he makes, well, of course, with him, leads with that intention, but even the best of presidents, there's not always the thought that, well, if I do this for my country, then it could have this effect or impact on the entire globe. I guess, as the commander in chief, you kind of have to think broadly like that, but sometimes it just completely goes over your head, that depth of influence that you truly do have, where you're just trying to do what makes sense to you and yours, like I said, for the greatest good of all that you care about. And lo and behold, there's so many more, so many places to be affected on account of that. So this is speaking to energies that know that, and that's why they take things seriously. That's why they move with a high degree of carefulness and mindfulness, not necessarily caution or fear, but just knowing that everything that you do affects something or somebody, And I feel like that's why the high priestess is here, to really zero in on that nurturing aspect of divinity, where it's not all, hard lines like the emperor, just business as usual. It's really about the compassion of creativity now, leading more so than it being like an afterthought. Yeah, interesting. All right, well, I'm gonna move on. I think the Temperance was under, and then the Ace of Cups, peeked out. So let's move on, because I done talked a while. Oh, shoot, it's 38. Because it's a lot of energy in those cards. Like, to be honest, I could still keep going. It's about to be some high priestess, seers, prophetess, prophets, psychics, healers, evangelists, shamans, like, it's like calling all spiritual practitioners to the boardroom is what is given, to council or to Congress, you know what I mean? Like, calling everybody out, more or less, individually and collectively, to do what you do unapologetically and without fear of condemnation at this point. Really almost like your life depends on it, or like others' lives depend on it, because I feel like that's where we are now. Like there's really not a lot of space and opportunity for hiding on account of the fear to be seen or judged or again condemned. And maybe there's some support system that is coming through. It's probably more energetic, of like with that temperance, it's kind of like I don't know, like some type of frequency that could be entering the chat, so to speak, that kind of gives way for everyone of which I'm speaking of in their own way to get into position, or get in formation, so to speak. And like I said, it could very well be confrontational, or it just could be invitational. I feel like it's more invitational than it is confrontational, even if it looks like it's confrontational. Because like I said, it's something peaceful and fluid about it, where it's just like, this is your moment, this is the open door, this is the opportunity. That it could even come in the form of a position, a job, some type of corporate endeavor, or creative endeavor, leadership position, where you get to really flex your skills on a spiritual level, and also, whatever your expertise is naturally. Because the emperor, more or less, he can be an architect or an engineer, or somebody that is just highly skillful, imaginative, vision oriented, that can see the big picture. But I feel with the emperor is somebody that can also do the work. So they're not just one that necessarily just tells everybody what. A good emperor, I would say, is not one that just tells everybody else what to do. It's somebody that, they know the ins and outs of the operations that they oversee, so that if they needed to roll up their sleeves and do X, Y, and Z, they can step in at any point, or at any time. So I don't know why I'm saying all that, but it's something here about really kind of stepping into your calling, holistically, and not leaving any expression of your gifts and talents to the imagination anymore. Because there's no fear, or there's no threat. That's the word I was trying to find, like a threat evoking. A lot of times people went into hiding, especially when you talk about unconventional folks like seers and psychics and readers and prophets and prophetess. Like, those are usually the ones that attract threats or attacks, either because people feel threatened by what they see and say, or they feel provoked to some type of envy or jealousy of their gifts. They feel insecure in comparison. Like, there's so many, and also, of course, they feel many times righteously justified to like avenge God's grace, as if there is any cause for a vengeance in that way. But something about that is dissipating. I don't know why or how. It may be by necessity, where it's kind of happening, like that temperance energy, like one hand is washing the other, where, like I said, there's such a threat that there's a need for folks to kind of come out, like step out and step up. And because of that void being filled, there also is more of an understanding and a grace for it from those that, as I've said, were more provoked to be threatened before, or offended even before. There's something that's being balanced out. It really literally could be some type of a world occurrence or event, or just the state of affairs as they are unfolding, where not only are people finding more of a need for the expression of their spiritual gifts and nature, so therefore they do, for the greatest good of all, but those that are influenced or affected by it, and especially in a positive way, are more accepting and appreciative of it on account. And then what does that do? But also influence and inspires others to search themselves, or allow themselves to operate in that frequency more openly and honestly as well. So like I said, one hand definitely washes the other. I don't know, something shifting big here, or it already has, and we're about to see, as I said, like some unveiling. Like, I don't know, some type of ta-da! Like, I don't know. Oh, and look who came back out, the Knight of Swords. What's he chasing? Let's see. There's that aggression, that threatening behavior that I was talking about. So this could represent the energies that, again, want to put a stop to this evolution, but they're not well armed or equipped to fight the forces that are supporting it. That are inciting it. Because certainly none of us can do it on our own. At least I'm hard pressed to believe that there's one person here that's sitting pulling the strings, even when they think they are, like pulling, you know what I mean? Like saying now is the time for this or that. It's like a collective conjuring that's happening, where there are waves of awakenings that have been taking place to put creation from a very personal point of view first. So back to what I was saying, where you established a standard, made a difference, it made a ripple, it made a wave, and where someone else does same thing, but it happens from a collective standpoint. It's hardly just one person, one being making a wave all their own that could sustain all of creation, but it could influence multitudes within creation to then advance momentum, which again, like I said, is literally like this Knight of Swords kind of fighting against the wind. It doesn't even, I'm gonna move on, because it doesn't even matter what they're looking for. Yeah, look at that, 5 of Swords, like they're their own worst enemy. That's what they're moving toward, their own demise. And look how these cards almost look alike in the background, and how the clouds are and stuff. It's like somebody, those that are looking to kind of win at all costs and defeat, beat the odds, or to move against the evolution of time, particularly as it's divinely ordained, are really just, going to the front lines of their own demise. You know, they literally are their own worst enemy, whether they realize it or not. Take a few more and then I'm going to get up out of here, because I don't think today was so much about the cards. It's whatever this energy is that's trying to come through, or whomever these energies are that are being unveiled. I guess this is your sign that it's safe to come out. Yeah, look at this, the Two of Wands. You know, whatever your plan, your posture of progression is safe to see it through, or to carry on, carry it out. Maybe even if you've been thoughtful about physically moving in a particular direction, but wow, look, with the 3 right after that. Not only do you have everything you need within you to make the journey everything that you could possibly ask for is on its way, or will meet you there, one or the other. Everything is in order, it's in sequence, it's in alignment, 2 to the 3, back to back. Just as soon as there's a decision made, there's provision that is granted. As soon as there is a direction of devotion decided upon, all the other things fall into line. Like, say you don't really necessarily know how you're going to move or even where you're going to move to, if this is a physical indication. But as soon as you decide, I'm ready to move, suddenly things just kind of like tumble into place. You get an opportunity to either visit somewhere that could be ideal, and you end up visiting and it's like, yeah, I could see myself living here. Or you get a job opportunity that calls you to a location. Or, it could be serendipitous, or it could be quite practical. Either way, it's like on account of there being a decision made and perhaps even an action taken. So maybe, of course, like starting to look for apartments, or starting to look for a new place or a new job, or just putting your feelers out there, maybe starting to ask around, and it ends up being exactly the segue that you need to bring what was just like a simple thought to fruition, almost effortlessly. So it seems, in comparison to what seemed like a really broad idea, like almost, broad horizons, bigger than you to some degree, to it just falling into place like nothing, flowing like water. I hear that. All right, 2 more and I'm done. So this could even be in terms of like what I'm saying, where a lot of what I've spoken about has been like very lofty concepts of spiritual practice or faith, your personal rituals or devotion, divine devotion, or whatever whatever it is that you feel called or purposed to do. It feels big. It feels like, okay, that sounds good, but where do I start? Or I'm sure of what it is, but what's next, or whatever. Like, it's all about that decision, that acceptance, again, here it is, of that invitation, or even the what's the right word, like the confrontation, however it presents itself is, and really, as I said, the Two of Wands, it's all also a matter of how you receive it and take it, because what could seem like a confrontation could just be an invitation. So there lies a point of decision that yields a result as well, creative result, like your perception. So one and the same, how you receive that invitation, how you respond to it is what puts things into motion. You'll know exactly what comes next or what to do next, because it'll damn near be laid out for you. Wow, three of cups, cause for celebration. This could even be like finding your tribe or your people, or finding the support system that you need at the most opportune time. Asking a friend, you just out for happy hour or cocktails or dinner or whatever, and you mention something that just kind of ripples into all that you need or all that you desire. But it could also be, because this could even be like kind of finding your coven, so to speak. Not actually in the witchy sense, maybe for some, depending on what you're into. But it's really kind of like, just like I said, finding your tribe of people that get you, people that you are synergized with in a way that amplify your manifestations, and that could really just be finding good friends that, like I said, that are supportive, that understand your goals and maybe even share some of your insights, or share some of your interests. And that in itself is comforting enough to make you more attractive and more creative. Definitely emphasis on attractiveness, so that you're working less hard and, more smart than hard, because your energy is so vital and vibrant that there's not a lot of overworking that needs to be done. It literally is a matter of decision and reception. That's real high priestess energy from an emperor perspective, again, that is devout to the divine, where you're not looking to manifest anything that really is out of alignment with what is divine or what is specifically assigned to you. But you're not limited also by any constructs of the 3D realm that would dictate what you do and don't deserve, especially people, places, or things, that you don't submit to, that have no deference really and truly in your life. That could be obstinate forces that would want to object or interrupt this frequency of flow. Or it even could be from the inside out, your own thoughts and ideas about what is, because that's a thing too. A lot of us are shaking off what we believe to be righteous or justified or of God or ordained or lawful in spirit and in truth, especially more on the spiritual side, because what's not lawful in truth, we know, it is what it is. It also is unlawful more or less in spirit, but there's a lot of limitations that get to be released on what is spiritually sound, especially considering the deference to the Hierophant energy within our society, that patriarchal force that more or less dictates what is good, what is bad, what is righteous, and so on and so forth. Now with reestablishing your own creed of creative consciousness. You know, you're more or less taking authority and taking creative authority back in your life. And sometimes that comes with releasing some old limiting mindsets. Most of the time it does. Even some limiting behaviors and beliefs, habits and practices, things that we do because we feel like we should, or, you know, or else, or we feel a guilt not to, or that we believe, or we don't even allow ourselves to question because we feel ashamed to challenge. You know, this card is about liberating yourself and finding yourself in good company with those that share that same liberty, to kind of like solidify that way of life, you know, which in many ways is very new to many of us, to most of us. Like, we've been used to living in community and paying tribute to the patriarchy as it's been established, and everything that entails. You know, no tea, no shade, but that's what we've been used to. So it's like a deconditioning to balance those energies back to that temperance card, that everything doesn't necessarily have to be thrown out the window, but there definitely needs to be a reformation, probably in a very revolutionary way that makes space for both energies, both polarities to harmoniously exist in spirit and in truth. And just as much as we found comfort and community with that old way of living, even in its discomfort, you know, we get to find a new sense of security and revolutionized spaces. Yeah, one more. I keep saying that. One more. Wow, with the World card. Wow. It's a new world. It's a brave new world. Wow. All that I just said, that's what's being closed. And there's this transition to a frequency of balance and harmony that no one is accustomed to. No one. It's new for everybody. It's going to take some getting used to for the masculine energy and the feminine energy, because the masculine energy has had certain privileges, well, has assumed certain privileges, and what do you call it, like has kind of lived in a space of entitlement to those privileges for, I would say, not totally unchallenged, but in many ways not always successfully challenged to the point of change. As I said, you know, like, where is the evidence, the proof of the influence of change really and truly in creation and society? Like, how does that really look? So it's like the real change is truly upon us now. And as I said, the masculine energies, especially those that resist that change and are still fighting for how it used to be, are really just, you know, fighting against themselves and keep holding themselves back. But those that are optimistic about the future will find themselves in a point of celebration more than not, you know, even as there's transition underway for either side. Because as I'm trying to get out, for the feminine energy, you know, we're getting used to sovereignty, getting used to feeling where we're going to, because I can't say as if, well, I guess I should say it as if we've already arrived and achieved, but honestly speaking, this is what we are transitioning to, where even when you think about the energy of the high priestess, where the true nature of a woman no longer has to be suppressed or repressed or reduced, certainly not hidden on account of, a fear, protection and security. Even if we take the spiritual aspect away from it, just the mystique of being a woman overall has not always been celebrated and appreciated the way that I believe the divine has intended for it to be. So now, with that being a regenerative, with that ideal being regenerated throughout creation, the feminine aspect is going to have to get used to being celebrated in such certain ways, and such not intentional, but like kind of put on display in a sense, like pronounced, profound. I don't know that none of these words are clicking, but to really be celebrated out loud, not secretly, or to exceptionally, there it is, be celebrated in certain ways. We're not used to that. And the masculine energy is also not used to having to share the spotlight or share the stage, share the scene, to share the favor and the privilege and the honor as it is, without our permission and our deference to allow them to do so without contempt. So it's something to get used to for everybody. It really is, but it will be all the better for it. It's for the greatest good of all. Wow. And the Queen of Pentacles, yeah, not used to their worth being matched, the value of a woman truly being rewarded just for who she is, what she brings to the table, the values that she has established for herself, not used to it being beneficial, holistically, not just when it's convenient, but just like holistically, without prejudice, it being beneficial, to be a woman. And that now is the time where it's a great time to be a woman. It doesn't look like it just yet, but the evidence is coming. I believe within many of our breaths of existence, especially for those that have sown in their own profession of faithfulness, for it to be so, you will see the reward and the benefit from your devotion, of your devotion. And it's undeniable, it's irrefutable. It can't be depleted, it can't be stolen. Nobody can. This is a type of value that can't, nobody, especially a man, can't come in and just assume rights to, to just, or to siphon or manipulate. Like, it's protected. It's sacred. It's almost like it's so specifically assigned to whomever has sown for it, that anyone that would try to, impose themselves or infringe upon that value, whether we're talking about actual material value or internal, even could even be like self-esteem, confidence, creativity. like I said, they would ultimately be on the fast track to self destruction. Look at this. What's this here? Yep, with the devil card in the back. Yep, and that's confirming right there. It's just it's not going down like that with the justice. My God. And this is the earthly justice coming from that temperance card. This is like spiritual justice now manifesting in the earth. Finally, like balancing those scales that have been imbalanced for so long by way of that devil card: greed, ego, obsession, pride. What's another one? Addiction, possession. You know, that phallic, what that's really representing with the devil and the Ace of Wands is like toxic masculinity, which is the impurity of the patriarchy that is being filtered and I don't even know what else to say, like filtered and what's another word? I don't know, like filtered and like I gotta know, because something about that feels like I need to make that clear. Like sanctified or scrubbed, you know what I mean? Like cleansed. Ah, there it is, cleansed. It's being cleansed. Consciously, creatively, culturally, conceptually, that toxic masculinity is being cleansed from creation, and there's a rebalancing of energy and frequencies that are more faith driven than force driven. And that's just that on that. So if you don't find yourself in alignment with that frequency, then you find yourself as an enemy or a force moving against it, which will ultimately have you find yourself exterminated or just badly bruised and beat up. And at the point where you have to seek sanctuary in some sanctified way. So that's what it is. Justice for all. It's time to actually live by that creed. Liberty and justice for all. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.